Welcome to another episode of E4 Explicit Podcast. I'm Corey, and today we have the Frogman, Don Mann, former U.S. SEAL, Team 1, Team 2, Team 6, mega triathlon guy, has climbed Mount Everest. We'll talk about that. We talked about that last time, but we'll re-engage in that. And AKA Sweet Satan is in the building. So I appreciate you, Don. And just give the people a recap of kind of who you are, if you can, for me.
Corey, it's great to be here again with you. It's a privilege to be here with you. You're such a professional. But my name's Don Mann, and I'm an adventure athlete and a retired Navy SEAL. And I did serve at SEAL Teams 1, 2, and 6, and have competed in well over 1,000 competitions. And I always tried going after the toughest ones in the world, which ended up being the 500 and 600 mile long adventure races in the Himalayas or Argentina or somewhere. And we'd really push ourselves to passing out, vomiting, or hallucinations. And that's how I measure how hard it was. And I loved my life as a SEAL. It taught me so much about life and training for something very, very difficult. Helped me in preparing for other big things after I left the SEAL teams, after doing 21 years. And so life takes on many different forms. And I think if you just have a mindset that you can put your mind to anything, direct it to anything, that you can accomplish almost anything you set yourself out to do. And that's pretty much the SEAL philosophy. And I had a little of that in me before as a SEAL. And then I got a lot as a SEAL, and I've just been building that mindset ever since.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's something that I learned the first time I talked to you was you're a big mindset guy. And I see that across pretty much all the big name Navy SEALs that are out there, that whether they have a podcast or they just have some sort of digital footprint, that's like their main message is the mindset. It's not so much your physical attributes, and it's mainly mental. And we talked about this before of like, your body, you can be the strongest man on the planet, but if you're not mentally there, and that's why you did so well in Buds, you said, is because you mentally prepared that it was going to be a terrible experience. And then when you got there, your mental was like way worse than what it actually was, which kept you going. So, with everything that's happened since the last time we talked in January, I think, of 2020, literally like right before shit hit the fan. And it's been, kind of virtual ever since then. Has your mindset like helped you and helped other people like kind of through these trying times, do you think?
Sometimes I feel guilty when people say, "Hey, how you doing?" Well, I could say, well, I've had some friends who've died. I've got some friends who are really sick in the hospital. I've got relatives with COVID. And I could go down that path, all that being true. But I don't choose to for some reason. I just choose, like, things are going well. We have this big pandemic we're all dealing with, and we just got to group together, do the right thing, and get through it. And it's just some tough years. But on a personal level, I pray, and I feel bad about all the people who are suffering through this. Other than feeling bad for them and feeling very sad for those folks, it hasn't affected me at all. I do everything I used to do, except for work. I'm not working as much, but that's okay too, because I get to work out more. So I just kind of see that with every negative, there's a positive. And there are positives coming out of this. Less people have gotten the flu this year, for instance. It's a small positive and a small thing, but we just happen to be at this age where we're all on this planet during this pandemic, and we're going to get through it. And it's going to make the other end seem so much nicer and more pleasant. And we're going to enjoy our freedoms all the more. And we're going to enjoy just going out and being in public. We're going to get that appreciation for everything we've lost during the pandemic. And we're going to get it. And it's going to make post-pandemic so much nicer than pre-pandemic, I think.
I agree with you 100%. I see a lot of people that are doing things that kind of they otherwise wouldn't have done because it's pushed them to do things and get outside their comfort zone, which is pretty much where you live is outside of your comfort zone. You don't even live in your comfort zone. So, which is phenomenal to me. And that's kind of on a personal level. Myself and my girlfriend, we've taken up like being outdoors more and just kind of like appreciating those things. And we touched on that last time we talked when we were talking about you and Everest and stuff like that. So, I mean, I just wanted to know kind of more of like a little bit more of the details. Can you just like refresh my memory on your experience? Because I still believe you can't go past 10,000 feet, right?
That's what my pulmonologist told me. And then
Uh,
I'm not trying to sound like I'm a risk taker or anything like that, but I've gone to 14,000 feet 5 times since Everest,
gosh,
and all but once I felt great. And there are 54 14,000 footers out in Colorado, and I've done 20 of them. I like to go up and run down, but I have 32 to 34 to go. And but I really, really have a good understanding of how I feel when I start feeling bad or feeling sick. And if I start going up to altitude 7, 8, 9, 10, 12,000, if I feel any pulmonary effects, because on Everest I got high altitude pulmonary edema and cerebral edema. Actually, I was drowning in my fluids, my both lungs filled with fluids, and I lost my color vision and my memory, and it got dark. And so all that happened on Everest, and my pulmonologist said, well, if I were you, I wouldn't go above 10,000. And I jokingly said, well, I guess I won't see you on the 14ers. But I didn't intend to do that on purpose. I went to 10 and I felt fine. So I kept going without doing any damage or harm to myself.
right.
And I like that goal. I like this 54 14ers out there. A lot of people do them all. And it's just my daughter lives out in Denver. And so I like going out there, visiting my daughter. She just had a baby, and my stepdaughter's out there and she has a son. And I like to go out there and visit my family and go do 14 as well. And they would go skiing, one or the other.
Yeah, dude. Listen, I was listening to our podcast before, and when you were talking about Everest, so we talked about Everest. You talked about K2. You talked about how on Everest it's 1 in every 10 die, and on K2 out in Pakistan it's 1 in every 3. And as you were describing like just your experience on Everest with green boots and all that stuff, and then we started talking about your like combat stuff, it just felt eerily similar where it was like the atmosphere was kind of like just almost like hostile, like not that people were shooting at you on Everest, but you know what I mean? It was just a very like hostile environment on how you described it. So, is that like true, or is that just because you also said that it was like a hobbyist could also do Everest? So it's like I definitely couldn't do it, but
Well, I agree on 2 of the points you made and disagree on 1 of the points, but I disagree that you couldn't do it because
all
I
right.
think you could. I mean, it's really luck of the draw if you're not going to have altitude issues going up there and you don't get hit with a bad storm.
Right.
Physically, you can. And Everest is not that physically challenging compared to a lot of other mountains, I should say, relative to some other big mountains, 8,000-meter peaks. It's not as difficult as many of those, but you're still out there for a month and a half, and you're still up at altitude, and it does take its toll on your body. And so that's when people get hurt and die up
Right.
there. Now, that ratio of 1 out of 10 who would summit on Everest compared to 1 out of 3 who summit on K2 die, that is getting better. The past seasons have been, that's better now than it used to be.
Great.
But you get 1 year like 2015, a lot of people died. In 2014, a lot of people died. 96, a lot of people died. But some years you just don't have that many deaths. It kind of depends on when you start to count.
Right.
But
Right.
K2 is a difficult mountain, very, very difficult. And I wouldn't say I'm as low as a hobbyist, but I'm not a hardcore mountaineer either. But I am way far away from ever even thinking about climbing K2. I couldn't even let my mind go there. It's that much more
Really?
difficult than ever. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's more steep or the terrain or
Yep, the weather's so much worse. There are a lot more dangerous sections. The terrain is so much more rugged and challenging and dangerous and unprotected compared to Everest.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. There's a woman climber. She's from Poland, and her nickname is the Incredible Wanda. And Wanda was probably one of the greatest climbers of all time, but she was by far one of the top women climbers.
Right.
And the legendary Wanda, the Incredible Wanda, and she's got a long, long name, so everyone just calls her the legendary Incredible Wanda from Poland. But she was the first woman to climb Everest, and she didn't have an issue.
Wow.
She also was doing all 7 summits, and she broke her leg in Russia, and she shattered her femur. And then the doctor said, well, you're not going to be able to go to K2 like you're planning. You can't go to K2. She said, no, I'm going to go to K2. I'm climbing all the 8,000 meter peaks. I'm climbing the tallest peak on every continent. So anyways, the toughest person I ever heard of climbing K2 was Wanda. The hike to Everest Base Camp, it's a hike. You basically walk for 10 days. And you're carrying a pack. But
you walk for 10 days?
To get to base camp at Everest. Yep.
Oh my God.
But K2 is a really, really serious hike. That's not just a walk like we'll kid around. Well, I'll kid around. The walk to Everest Base Camp is not hard.
Right.
It's just a 10-day walk.
Right.
And you stop at little coffee shops and tea shops, and you eat and you drink coffee and tea. And you sleep in lodges. The hike to base camp. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's really kind of, yeah. But K2, getting to the base of the mountain, it is so difficult. But when Wanda broke her leg, she went and did that 10-day hike to K2 on crutches, and then she ended up summiting K2 after a lot of her fellow climbers died right there with her, and they froze, and the stories on K2. Everest, everyone thinks might be harder because it's a little bit higher. K2 is the second highest mountain in the world, but it's by far way more dangerous.
Wow. So they have, like, I know you said on Everest they had like green boots and stuff. He's like, when you see green boots, like to bust a right or whatever it is. Do they have that on K2?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of bodies up on K2, and I don't want to sound too dramatic or anything. But when you pass a body, it's a bad thing. And sometimes it's just covered with snow and ice. And Wanda mentions this in her book, but sometimes a body will get blown off a ledge or a cliff and shatter. So there'd be a skull over here, a torso over here, a limb over here. And that's worse than seeing a body. And poor Wanda, she wanted to climb every 8,000 meter peak in the world, and there was a bad snowstorm, ice storm, and everybody was coming down one of the 8,000 peaks in the Himalayas, and they saw her in a yellow jacket in a snow cave, just freezing cold, and everybody else was coming down, and a couple guys saw her in a cave. They said, Wanda, you got to get down, the storm's going to get you. And Wanda said no, and she was climbing solo all these 8,000 meter, which is 25,000 feet and above. She was climbing solo. She weighed probably 90 pounds.
What?
And she goes, no, I got to make it up there. I'll be okay. But do you have any hot water? I need some hot water. I don't have any fuel. And they said, no, we don't. She said, can I borrow one of you guys' jackets? I'm freezing cold. They said, no, we need it to get down. And then one of the guys started crying because he's seeing the legendary Wanda stuck in a snow cave. And her mindset was so stuck on climbing. And she was she was a brilliant climber. She knew to turn around when things got bad, but for some reason she made an error, and she decided to wait out the storm, and she was freezing cold, and she didn't have fuel for hot water or anything. And that season ended, and nobody saw Wanda again. And she wanted to climb all 8,000 meter peaks, and there's 14 of them. And so the next year, some climbers went up, and they looked down the mountain, and they saw a piece of yellow clothing. And they all knew Wanda was up there in that yellow summit jacket. And it was Wanda. She got blown off the mountain and she died. And so But I don't mean to say all this negative things, but her body shattered when I saw
Wow.
her.
What the
Yeah,
fuck?
it's just part of climbing. There's so much good to it, but
Right.
part of the good is knowing that some bad
That's a
can happen, and
possibility. Yeah.
it makes it more exciting, actually.
Right. Right. Yeah. And she knew too. She knew what the risk was, but she was that determined to. That's incredible.
Reinhold Messner, the greatest climber of all time, I've only known him to say he respects one climber, and he said, I respected Wanda a great deal. And
Wow.
that's Reinhold Messner. And I had some friends who've climbed with Wanda, and she said, yeah, she's a really, really nice lady. But she was intense. She was very, very intense.
You have to be. You have to be intense. You have to be some sort of like have a mindset to want to climb all 8-meter summits on the planet. Like that, you gotta be cut from a different kind of cloth, I think, honestly.
And she was grew up in Poland, and after World War II, of course, Poland was all bombed out and everything. And she was a little girl. Her and her two brothers went out to one of these bombed out structures, and her brother got hit with an unexploded bomb, and he lost his life.
Wow.
And Wanda saw that, and she was in dirt poor. Her family was dirt poor, and she had nothing. She experienced some tragedy at an early age, and she never wanted anything. She just lived in a little tiny apartment in Poland, and all she set out her mind for big things, and she went after them. And I don't think her story is 100% tragic, because she did climb that last summit, and that's what she set out to do
Wow.
everything she put her mind to. She lost her life doing it, which is tragedy, but that's how she lived her life. And she was a huge inspiration for a whole generation of climbers, male and female.
Right, right. That's incredible. Well, that's kind of, the macro micro goal mindset that you use, right? The kind of have this like almost ridiculous goal, but knowing that you can get to it and then add these little micro goals in between, like when you did the marathon and you wanted to at least do the one in Hawaii, but you wanted to break that guy's record. So like, you have a similar kind of mindset, I think, which is why you do and you enjoy. You don't do these things just because you're like, oh, I got to do this. You actually want to do these things, which is pretty incredible. You just been going up and down 10 and 14 footers the last year, right?
The 14,000 footers. Yep. I think since we last spoke in January, yeah, I've been doing a lot of skiing out there out west, and paddling. I'm still paddling. The water is pretty flat right now. I've been
Right.
doing a lot of paddling, but mainly cycling. I'm doing a lot of cycling, mountain bike riding, road riding, and I'm having a gravel bike built for climbing gravel mountains out in West Virginia, Virginia Mountain, the Blue Ridge
Blue
Mountains.
Ridge. Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, and then there's a 4 mile hill, and I did it for a time trial, just running down and going back up just to see the pace I can keep up. And it's just a steep trail. And I've been, I've trained on the Appalachian Trail and Blue Ridge Parkway, and those are in Virginia. That's our great training grounds.
Right. Yeah. We're actually going to West Virginia this weekend, or starting Monday. We're going away to Capicone, West Virginia, or something like right on the Blue Ridge Mountains or something like that. So yeah, we're gonna go do some hiking there. We go to Shenandoah all the time and stuff like that. It's pretty incredible. But then it's like when you've seen like I said before, last time we talked, I went to Rainier. It's like crazy the difference. Like these are like hills compared to like what Everest and like the Himalayas and all this crazy stuff. So but it's nice to have it right in our backyard, honestly.
That's right. Yeah, and when I put on all those races, Odyssey Adventure Racing, most of our races were up in the Blue Ridge Mountains in
Oh,
Virginia, West Virginia. We had a lot we had some in Tennessee, some in Kentucky, in North Carolina, but most of them were in Virginia and West Virginia, mainly because of all the back-to-back hills. And people from Colorado and all over the country had come do the races. They said, "Why is it your races are so hard? We're out west, even though our mountains go up to 14,000, 15,000 feet. It's not that hard out here." And it is because what we have access to and all the trails, the Appalachian Trail and all the trails on the East Coast go up and they come down. It's nonstop. And I learned years ago when the settlers came to the U.S. and they built their trails and roads, they built them up and they come back down. They didn't understand switchbacks yet.
Huh.
So out west, trails are like a lot of switchback and it's not real steep.
Right.
And also the 14,000 footers usually start at about 10,000 feet where you start the climb.
Right.
So you're still only doing about a 4,000 or 5,000 foot climb.
Right. That's funny you say that, because when I went to Rainier, it was like the base camp, or where people were starting to go up to the glaciers on the top and the peak, was literally right at 10,000 foot or feet.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. What kind of stuff do you have to do, like, to prep for? I know you said it was like $90,000+. It was like a 75-day type thing. I mean, do you have to wear, like, obviously you have to wear certain equipment, but like, is it almost like race car drivers? Because don't race car drivers have, like, I've heard they wear like catheters so they can just go to the bathroom while they're driving. Is there anything like crazy that you have to do when you're preparing for something like that?
Not really. There isn't. I mean, you got to get cardio fit and you have to get your legs fit, of course.
Right.
And a lot of ways to do that, even at sea level, just with trainers and squats and lunges and things like that. But basically, you have to prepare your body for altitude. And that helps when you go out to Denali or Rainier or any at Mount Baker or the 14ers, to try to just to see how your body reacts to altitude. If you have bad, terrible headaches and you can't make it on the 14ers, you're probably not going to make it to the summit of Everest.
Right.
And a 20,000 footer, I've had problems at 20,000 feet before, at Cotopaxi in Ecuador, a couple other 20,000 footers. And I really felt my chest pounding. It was hard to breathe. So I knew, for me, over 20,000, I feel it. Some people at the summit of Everest, they don't have a problem. It's just how you're born. And they don't know why you get HAPE or HACE, high altitude pulmonary or cerebral edema. They still can't figure out why it hits some people, when it hits people, or what brings it on, or what characteristics a person might have that makes them more prone to getting it. Like Sir Edmund Hillary, he got HAPE and HACE after he summited Everest, and he couldn't go back up to altitude.
Wow.
And nobody really knows why, and they're still trying to figure it out during the high altitude mountain series, the summit series they have, the conferences and all.
Right. That's fucking crazy. Yeah, when you told me that stuff, I was just I've like I told you before, I've had 3 open heart surgeries, so I don't know how my altitude would do. My heart would probably be like, let's just stick to Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains. But man, well, I think you're excited because of everything you got going on, for sure. You have a bunch of programs you're doing. You have a clothing line that you co-founded. You have, I don't know if you want to talk about your potential show coming out, Surviving Man and stuff like that, but you got a lot of shit going on. You want to talk about some of that stuff?
Sure. I really have a heart for children, especially children who are handicapped or have a problem, they were born with difficulties or that they just don't get a fair chance. That's always bothered me, like children, like supporting the Special Olympics. For me, it's a gut wrencher. It's so hard for me to help children. I mean, I love it and I just want to help them all the more.
Yeah.
But
yeah, soft spot.
It just doesn't seem fair when children are born without a chance. So I always really, if I had to give all my time to a charity, probably one of the top charities would be helping children. Second to that, or right side by side, would be veterans, wounded veterans and all. But anyways, I got a call from the Navy SEAL Foundation. It's called SEAL Kids. They asked if I would help represent them. I said, wow, that's helping children and veterans. Yes, I'm there.
Right.
So, and so I want to help these SEAL kids who've lost their fathers in battle or in training, and SEAL kids who are without a father. I said, absolutely, that's just what I want to do. And so there's 2 things I'm doing to help support the SEAL kids. One of them is I'm creating, I should say, a huge virtual adventure race that's across the United States. It's 50 states and it's virtual. There's 10 events in every state. So there's 500 events. So for instance, you go into West Virginia or say Virginia, if you click online in Virginia, it'll be 10 events you have to do. It might be swimming, part of the James, doing so much of the Appalachian Trail, biking so much of Blue Ridge Parkway. It would be things unique to Virginia that take 2 to 3 hours, and you have to do 10 within a year. And then if you go to West Virginia, you have to do those 10 unique events, but you only have to do one state. And you can do it with a partner. So your partner does 5 and you can do 5, or you can do it with a group of people at work where you all pick one thing. Mm-hmm. But it's all to promote. It's free. I want it to be free. But throughout the website, you'll say, click here to see more about the SEAL Kids and donate here if you wish. And I'm trying to do that as a platform just to promote SEAL Kids and to promote racing and training without having a starting line or without fees or anything. And I'm trying to put that together now, and I've got a ways to go. I'm looking for volunteers to assist on that because it's very computer heavy, the workload. So I'm doing that. And then the other thing is this clothing brand, Neptune Athletics. We're doing the same thing with Neptune Athletics. I've got 2 friends down in Florida. He's a tennis pro. And right now we're gearing the clothing for all around sports, but it's started off heavy in the tennis world. And if you go to Neptune Athletics website, it's all for promoting the SEAL Kids. So I'm doing the clothing line and the TV show. The clothing line and the event, the America's Virtual Race. And then that just happened recently. Since we last spoke, it's gained a lot, and that's right. A TV show called Surviving Man. And that's going to be just taking a lot of people out, training them, bringing them to a range, teaching them some shooting skills. Then there's a competition. Then I have to compete against the winner of that. And then we're going to do it with celebrities. I believe the Modern Day Housewives TV show is going to be our first. We have an NBA player who's going to be our second, and an NFL player will be our third celebrity. Oh my God. And we're going to take them. That'll be out in Las Vegas. And with the shooting, the first 4 episodes are going to take place within the next 60 days, next 45 days by now.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm super pumped for that, man, because I saw like the kind of trailer teaser type video for it, and I just thought it was like total badass. Because like talking to you, it's like just the story, man. I just like want to have you over for dinner and just like have a glass of wine and just like listen to you talk about your stories. I mean, like you said in the last time we talked, it was almost like the Captain Phillips and like some of these stories just seem like fiction because they're so crazy that they're almost hard to believe, but they're 100% true. So I'm glad to see you and put your face out there and all your experiences in your training and stuff that you've trained Navy SEALs and you've done yourself, kind of put certain people and your average Joe have it to the test. I think it's totally awesome. You don't really see a lot of shows like that, and I think it's a perfect time for that because you got to kind of be ready for pretty much anything with the way the world's going now, whether it's politically or just pandemic wise in general. It's better to just be healthier and be fit and kind of have those attributes, which I think is fucking awesome, man. So kudos to you. I'm really pumped for that.
Thanks, Corey. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I was actually going to ask you, this is kind of crazy, but like everything that happened over the pandemic was with like all the cop stuff, right? So I remember watching Rogan, and Jocko was on there, and he was talking about what they should do for like the police, right? And I was like, he said that they should train them like the SEALs, like police officers should come. It's just totally random. I don't know why I thought about this, but I obviously talking to a Navy SEAL, I was curious of like what your thought was on that. And I thought it was a fantastic idea versus the whole, when they were trying to defunding and all that stuff, like put more training into those people, because talking to someone like you who's so level-headed and in crazy situations can have such a kind of like straightforward approach with it and like a realistic kind of like mindset really helped you get to where you are today. And I just thought like Jocko's idea of that was fascinating. So I was just curious if like from another former Navy SEAL, what your kind of, I don't know, idea for that was.
Well, I tell you, I should have put that in third. I mean, it's children, veterans, and cops where my heart is.
Right.
And cops so much right now today because I wanted to be a police officer. And I wanted, when I got out of high school, I went to college to be a police officer. And they said, well, anybody here who wants to be a cop to chase down bad guys and have shootouts and have all this action and jump from building to building, none of that's ever going to happen. You're basically going to get lower pay than anybody else. You pull your weapon out, you're probably going to lose your job. You're going to end up in court. And your divorce rate's the highest in civilian population. So all that stuff, all those reasons you guys want to be cops, none of those reasons will probably ever happen. And you've just been tainted your mind on watching too much TV. So he changed my mind and quite a few others of not wanting to be cops. I've trained a lot of police officers in shooting skills. And those guys have, when we have shooting training and they come every 6 months and they come to the range, they're very professional. All they want to do is a good job. And we'll have targets come across, lifelike targets in different situations. Some are threats and some are non-threats. And they'll react as quickly as they can. And every now and then they'll shoot a non-threat. Somebody who shouldn't be shot, like what's happened on occasion now.
Right.
It's always going to happen, unfortunately. It's not a good answer, but it's always going to happen.
Right.
But the reason is, and like I agree with Jocko to most of that, but the reason is because they simply don't have the training they need. They don't have the funds. They don't have the time on the range. Coming to a range twice a year, it's not enough. I mean, they have to buy their own ammo and go train on their own time, and that's still not enough. And I've never, ever met a bad cop, ever. I mean, every cop I've ever met, all they want to do is the right thing, but they do make mistakes. I don't know anybody who doesn't make a mistake in any profession, but the cops, especially when everybody is against them, and all they're doing is out there working at the poverty level, trying to do a good job. There's bad apples everywhere you look. I just haven't met one as a cop, but you know they're out there. But my hats are off to every police officer in this country for what they put themselves up against every single day. Every time they pull over anybody, they're risking their life walking up to that car. And they're doing it for us to try to be safe, for us to be safe.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think it's kind of crazy that they basically have to be a psychiatrist, like an athlete, basically a sharpshooter. They have to do all these things that are very difficult. And for one person to be able to do that with like a ridiculous amount of non-training. I mean, the canine dogs spend more time in training than the humans do, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
that a dog is getting more training than an actual human that's going to be out there in the public. And you're right, there are bad apples for sure. But, I agreed with him. And I think, I agree with you too, where it's just like, they don't need less training. They need more training. And the training, mentally needed to be similar to kind of the high level military guys, because you guys are just on a whole nother level, not even just like physically and just like your tactics and all that stuff, just mentally. The shit that you guys have to go through and prepare for is just on a whole nother level. And I was just always fascinated by that. And I was just curious if your input, really, just because you obviously experienced it.
But I can also say, thanks for saying all that about the SEALs and the military in general. I have never met a SEAL who hasn't made a mistake like that either. I mean, it's just when you're doing what you do, people do make mistakes. And,
right.
and we've lost good people because of that. And it's just inherent. But when you don't have the training, you're much more prone to making mistakes. And as far as what Jocko was saying, the part that could never happen is they're spending $500,000 on a BUD/S candidate to make him get through BUD/S. If someone, I mean, we don't, they're taking away the cops funding now. Right. And for them to get any type of training, it's really, really difficult for them. I mean, in an ideal world, that would be fantastic. Right. But we are unfortunately, we're going the opposite direction right now.
Right. Yeah, damn, that's fucking crazy. Well, I hate that. I know you gotta roll soon, so I didn't want to end on a negative note. But how are you doing? You came out with a book recently, right?
Well, yep. Actually, I just finished another book, and there's two really. There's one that's called Women Warriors, and that is all the women who, there's 2,000, and in World War II, there were 2,000 snipers trained in Russia, women snipers. They were phenomenal. In Vietnam, we had like some really bad enemy of us, but the VC, there were some great women warriors there. Some of the greatest pirates in the world were women. And I just thought it'd be interesting to write a book on women warriors. And then the other one that it's finishing up, but I should be done in about 4 months, is on political assassins, on the motives and why people go out to try to kill political leaders. You know, not only just Kennedy and Lincoln, but you know, there's a long list. And to me, it's just fascinating. I started off with a SEAL storyline. I went to shooting, then survival, but now piracy is kind of related to SEALs, and assassins is going against the enemy. So it's kind of the same theme, just with maybe a broader appeal to more people.
Right. That's pretty cool, man. So was that 23 or 24 books, I guess, now?
Oh, it'll be 20 total when those two are done.
Oh, okay. All right. Damn, man. That's awesome, dude. I can't wait for, let me know when it comes out. I'll check it out for sure. Website, usfrogman with 2 N's.com, right?
Yep.
Nice. That's good, man. Well, hey, I know you got to roll, so I'll let you get out of here. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me again. And I'll put all your details and stuff like that in the details of your websites and everything, or how people can reach you in the description. But I really appreciate you coming on again, man.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Corey. I hope we get to meet up in the mountains someday. We'll go do a hike someday, maybe this spring or something.
Text me. I'm 100% down. 100%. Okay. I know I'm in good hands if I'm with you, for sure. So absolutely.
That'll be fun.
Hell yeah, man. All right, man. Well, that's another episode for E4 Explicit Podcast, and we'll see you next time.